What is happening out there, Roto Scouts basketball fans? Welcome to a Wednesday show, gang. Thanksgiving Eve. Welcome to my nightmare. 14 games on FanDuel, 11 games on DraftKings. Not so bad. We also had 15 games on the NHL slate today, so we're talking about 570 some odd projections for NHL that needed to be spot checked and line combinations that needed to be moved around, minutes, combinations, guys in, guys out, guys questionable for several hundred NBA players. It's been a fun afternoon. As you can see, I am still at my house. I didn't have that chance to take that hour trip down to my parents today. Going to do it tomorrow morning. Just going to take a day trip down now rather than go down, spend the night tonight, tomorrow night, and so on and so forth. Little down and back Thanksgiving. Should be fun, though. Looking forward to a good meal. Hanging out tomorrow. If you're checking out the site, football projections for tomorrow's 3-game slate will go up tonight at some point, as will content. I'll have rankings. I'll have an above below. I'll have a optimizer and groups and notes article. So all that stuff, all usual football content, it'll just be for 3 games rather than a full main slate. But that'll go all up. That'll be up for you come tomorrow morning, and then I'll be on top of things. I'm going to get to my parents before noon tomorrow, so I'll be on top of things for those NFL kickoffs for any changes, stuff like that. No, 297-game NBA slate, exactly, Steven. It's been fun. No NBA tomorrow. I believe no NHL tomorrow, but I'll be back for Friday. I'll be here at home. So I know there's a Friday showdown. There's one football game on Friday, apparently. That was a surprise when I saw that. And then should be, I believe, a full like NBA Cup type day. What's the Friday schedule? Yeah, Friday we're back in business with, looks like it'll be 10 games at least on FanDuel. There's 2 10 o'clock games, so probably an 8 and a 10 on Friday. But we'll be fully engaged for that usual routine for the weekend. I will probably be able to pull off a Saturday NFL show this week. Wouldn't surprise me at all if I'm able to do that. 2, 3, 6, 7. NHL not doing us any favors. 14 NHL games on Friday, so that'll be fun. Hopefully everybody keeps their lines exactly the same. Anyway, chewed up enough time letting people trickle in the door. We have a lot to go through. Let me dive in here. First off, Anthony Taylor, huge slate. Let's get a win from one of us. Yeah, love to see it. Hopefully everybody had decent nights last night. You know, we all, I think the entire industry as a collective got burnt by Bobby Portis. Just not the right day. It was the right play before lock, after lock, going into the game. I would do it exactly the same as I did. Just did not work out. He played, 8, 10 fewer minutes than he would normally play in those circumstances and was not even that good when he was out there. So it's just a meltdown by Bobby Portis. But yeah, I mentioned it in the Discord. I had a 27th place FanDuel lineup that was in the main contest, and it had Portis in it, and it had so his 18.7, and it had Gary Trent in it, who put up like a 13.4. So I said, I'm considering that a win. I consider it that I won that slate with those 2 scores in that lineup and got that high up. But, yeah, it was obviously a wild-looking short slate last night, and tonight's just going to be utter pandemonium. So, should be fun. Let's get into this real quick here. I'm going to get us done and out by 6 o'clock so that I can be on top of everything. So, regardless of where we are at that point, I'm just going to punch the eject button. But I think we'll be able to get through. Since we're all positions, we can accelerate as needed. Vegas board. Miami in Charlotte. Miami favored by 4, 218.5 point total there. Mediocre as far as like the game environment, the Vegas line, but just a lot of missing pieces and parts on the Charlotte side. So there's some obvious values that are coming through. There's some obvious very high owned chalky players. On the Miami side, big slate. You can go to like the obvious, the Bams, the Jimmies, the guys who, kind of come through here and there regardless, but nobody really prioritized from Miami, I don't think. Portland and Indy favored by 10.5 in a home game, 231.5 point total there. DeAndre Ayton is questionable. That's a big piece of the slate as far as just, what do those minutes look like with all the other big men out there, or does it just become maybe an opportunity for inexpensive DeAndre Ayton spot? Decent game total there. Everybody kind of looks like who they are on the Indy side. We'll go through the sim results that you guys can see right now, and I can't in just a minute. Houston and Philly. Houston favored by 5.5 on the road, 219 point total there. I think that's going to come up largely like an everybody looks like who they are. Philly missing most of the star players. Just an ugly game overall. Bulls and the Magic. Magic favored by 10, 224.5 point total in that one. Usual mix with the Bulls. I'm sure we'll see some of the shares of guys like Io and Levine come up like we keep on getting. But they just kind of, I think, will land a little bit mediocre. On the Magic side, you can always go to the Franz level up at the top of that one, and then we'll see what pieces and parts we get from them today. Wendell Carter Jr. seems like he's finally going to make it back, so chewing into some of the minutes for guys like Goga and so on. Cavs favored by 10 at home against Atlanta. 240-point total in that one. Juicy total. That is the biggest on the board. Definitely an interesting spot there as far as the game total goes. Memory serves, Trey is questionable, or am I thinking of yesterday? We'll get into the injuries in a second. Memory's failing me on that one. The Clips and the Wizards, an 11-point game. Clippers favored on the road in Washington, 223 and a point total in that one. Knicks in Dallas to play the Mavs. Knicks are favored by 4.5 on the road. No Luka still for the Mavs, 233.5 point total there. Toronto and the Pellies. Pellies favored by 3 in a home game, 222.5 point total. A lot of missing pieces and parts for the Pelicans. Pistons at Memphis to play the Grizzlies. Grizz favored by 8, 225.5 point total in that one. Cade was doubtful to come back. I don't think we're getting Cade back. I think everybody probably just going to end up looking fairly mediocre on the Detroit side of that one. And then Memphis, the value is, kind of everybody flattened out price-wise, and then a bunch of guys came back. So we'll see if anybody popped for any of those value spots. We'll probably see a few Memphis guys creep through, at least for some shares. 218-point total between the Kings and the T-Wolves. Wolves favored by 3.5 in a home game. Obvious pieces in that one. I don't think there's anything really to crazy prioritize there. If Mike Conley doesn't play, that might become a different story. He didn't go last night. That was obviously a little twist. Lakers and the Spurs. The Spurs are 1.5-point dogs in a home game with the Lakers in town. 228-point total there. Just a few obvious pieces, I think, off the top. The Nets and the Suns. The Suns are favored by 9. They got KD back. They got Beal back last night. We'll see if they go again on a second day of a back-to-back. Beal was questionable. KD was probable last I saw. Devin Booker still had a pretty decent day. There was a period in the fourth quarter where I was figuring, they were up by like 20. You would figure KD, Beal maybe take a seat for a little while. For a while, they were out there at the beginning of the fourth quarter playing without Booker, which was just a weird, setup based on the, how the rotations fell. But I would have expected it obviously the other way around, give the two guys just coming back rest, and maybe Booker played more. He ended up getting in for the second half of the fourth quarter, though, even with the big win. Denver and Utah. Utah 10.5-point dogs at home to Denver. 228-point total in that one. A lot of missing pieces for Utah. We'll see how they came up. And then OKC and Golden State to round things out. 4-point game there. OKC favored on the road. Steph Curry is out. 226.5-point total in that one. Just getting through these is a lot. All right. News. So through the afternoon, the news that broke since the initial update that went in 2:30. Bradley Beal became questionable. KD probable. Haywood Highsmith downgraded to questionable. Dan Gafford downgraded to questionable. Steph Curry was ruled out. Kyle Filipowski confirmed out. Jordan Clarkson out. Lauri Markkanen out. John Collins now questionable. Cam Reddish questionable. Jackson Hayes doubtful. Dalton Knecht questionable. Anthony Davis probable. Keldon Johnson and Devin Vassell probable. Nick Claxton out. Cam Johnson available. And LaMelo Ball was upgraded to probable. Your full list the rest of the way that was put together before those news pieces broke. Probables, Nikola Jovic and Haywood Highsmith and Terry Rozier are all available, as is DeJounte Murray. Drew Smith, LaMelo Ball, and Peyton Watson all remain probable. Questionables, Trae Young, I was right about that. Alonzo Ball, Jalen Smith, Caleb Martin, Mo Bamba, Norm Powell, Jordan Poole, DeAndre Ayton, Scoot Henderson, Chris Murray, Johnny Furphy, Tyler Kolek, Quentin Grimes, Derek Lively, Klay Thompson, Tobias Harris, Jordan Hawkins, Brandon Ingram. Was Ingram ruled out? Why do I remember? Hang on. Let me just double check. Sanity check. Not out yet. All right. Thought I had seen that, changed that, and I guess not. All right, so Brendan Ingram still questionable. Trey Murphy questionable. Nick Claxton, Dorian Finney-Smith, Cam Johnson, who said he is going to play. Curry got rolled out, and Kuminga is questionable. And then additional outs: Cody Zeller, Karis LeVert, Max Strus, Dean Wade, Patty Williams, Paolo Banchero, Gary Harris, Joel Embiid, Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, PJ Tucker, Sadiq Bey, Kevin Love, Miles Bridges, Trey Mann, Daquan Jeffries, Nick Richards, Grant Williams, and Mark Williams are all still out. That's the three bigs for Charlotte. Donovan Clingan, Jeremy Grant, Matty Thibault, and Robert Williams are all out for Portland. Isaiah Jackson, Andrew Nembhard, Aaron Neesmith, Ben Shepard, James Wiseman continue to be out. Preston Achua, Mitch Robinson, Luka Doncic, Dante Exum, Cade Cunningham is doubtful. Zach Edey, Gigi Jackson, John Morant, Vince Williams Jr., DeMar DeRozan, Trey Lyles, Joe Ingles, Bruce Brown, Grady Dick, Kelly Olynyk, Emmanuel Quickley, Jose Alvarado, Herb Jones, Carlo Makovich, Zion Williamson, Boyug Bogdanovic, Noah Clowney, Daron Sharp, Cam Thomas, Vlaco Konkar, Aaron Gordon, Alex Caruso, Usmani Deng, Chet Holmgren, I should stop listing, Jalen Williams, and Anthony Melton, who I could also stop listing, are all out. That is your complete list. It's probably already changed by now. Different slates across sites, as usual, getting back into the board that you guys can see. There goes my PJ Tucker ownership. Trey, any love for Harrison Barnes at 4,500 on DK? We'll get there. Give me a minute. I mean, we can do Harrison Barnes first. This one's for Trey. 14-game slate. Trey wants to talk about Harrison Barnes out of the gate. We did not get any shares of Harrison Barnes on FanDuel. He's 5,900 in both forward spots. We got 1.3% of our top 150 of Harrison Barnes for 4,500 on DK. I will give you that he's a dramatically different play across sites. 4,500 is the correct price. I don't know where the hell FanDuel's getting 5,900. But just on a deep slate like this, like he's fine in that many shares, 1.3 to 5% of your 150. If you get him here and there, no problem. But there's no world in which Harrison Barnes is like a priority player on this slate or anything. But he's definitely, again, on the board for onesie-twosie type shares. There's nothing wrong with him at that DraftKings price. It's just there are 97 copies of that guy on this slate today. So no reason to prioritize him, but if he lands in one of your lineups, it's fine. If he was in my single entry, if he was in my I'm putting one lineup in as a lotto ticket kind of entry, I don't know that I would leave him there. That's one I would probably rework because, again, there are myriad options on this slate. What was he? Both forward spots? I'll use him as just as an example right now, right? So, again, 4,500, both forward spots, just a 4.80 value score in those spots. So, at the same positioning, I could offer you 3,500, Tijani Saloon from Charlotte. Remember, I was just saying before how Charlotte was going to provide us some pretty big pieces of value. He's really, really cheap. He fills the exact same position. Similar kind of a projection. It's not like he projects like a monster, but that 1,000 less that he costs for the same score is dramatic. We got him 67% of the time in our top 150 compared to the 1% of Harrison Barnes that we got. That's just one example of the kind of play that maybe you'd be forgoing if you make that decision. You've got a 5,500. This is 1,000 more on Denny Avdija with the shared small forward spot. We got Denny 38% of the time. He's a significant piece. We got him below the field, but we're highly exposed to him. This is the same priced play at different positions, and we got it 30% of the time. So if you're just looking at moving price around, you get options like that. Delano Benton, you got Anthony Black at the exact same price. We got him 25% of the time. Again, different positioning. 47 sharing the power forward. We got 14% of Jabari Smith. 43 sharing the power forward. We got 8% of Jonathan Isaac, who is a much better per minute performer overall. So, yeah, while there is room for a guy like Harrison Barnes, it's more room across 150 lineups. In one lineup, there might not be enough room in the car for him. Yeah, and that's what I'm saying is Anthony Papagallo. Yeah, and I was just using him to try and extrapolate that point. That's why we spent 3 minutes on Harrison Barnes just now. Power says, well, Poole is in, so Harden just became a play. Oh, and I was laughing at Stephen Leibowitz's comment about wanting to sing "We Didn't Start the Fire." Yes, that's. I could try and memorize it and do it to the beat of that one day. All right, let's go. All right, so we got it sorted by DraftKings positions, but we got to go by FanDuel, or sorted by DraftKings outcomes, but we got to go FanDuel positions. As usual, we've got a separate slate. I'm going to knock out the differentiated guys quickly off the top here. 37% of Colin Sexton looks pretty significant with, again, a lot of missing bodies for Utah. Going to have to carry some of the scoring load. He's let us down multiple times. 31 and change minutes the other day. He put up a 28.4. That's right around the .90 that he's been playing at. But in seasons past, including last year, he was a 1.13 player. So we got to have faith that he's going to get back to that level. Got to have faith in the extended usage with got everybody out around him. So there's opportunity galore for him at 6,000. He's coming through a decent amount, a little bit below the field. If you want to take that down to the field, they're probably in the 30% range, and that's also fine. 3% of SGA, but you can obviously squeeze that a little bit more for some excellent point per minute production. So if you had 10% SGA, you're perfectly fine. You're just sacrificing something else to pay for it. Devin Booker, we really didn't get, but I wouldn't mind having a little bit more of as a late option. We did get 20% of Buddy Hield. Again, no Steph for Golden State, so yielding some additional minutes for some of these guys. Still a situation where basically everybody's playing in like the mid-20s to upper 20s to less than that. So not really that many appealing Warriors, but Buddy is coming through a little bit on FanDuel, multi-guard eligible, only 4,600, and going to at least have the opportunity to shoot as much as he wants to today, which can be a good thing, can be a bad thing with Buddy Hield. Ben Simmons, the only other significant piece, he's got point guard and center eligibility. I would wager with a gigantic slate of single centers that this is almost entirely at the point guard spot, but I could be wrong. Other than that, no real important guys in those last 3 FanDuel games. Harden was already looking like a play at the top of the board here for whoever was saying just before that Harden becomes more of a play. 9,200 on FanDuel. We got him 18% of the time. A little bit below the field, also a little bit below the field, but closer to for 9,000 on DraftKings. 30% of the time. That's a great spot. Great player. It's putting up 1.36 per minute so far this season. Nearly a 40% assist rate, 10.7% rebounding rate to go with it. Harden's been really, really good this year. I think he can go right back there and attack it. I've got him at 34 minutes. He's one of, the star caliber players who's got the ability to play upwards of that in kind of a soft game environment. So if anything, I think Harden could go upward from here. So I like that spot quite a bit and definitely looks very appealing on DK. If you went up to, 35, 40%, it's just adding a few shares on DraftKings. No issue with it. Same thing with going like 25 and just leveling with the field on FanDuel. I think that's okay. Delano Banton for 51 on FanDuel is not a piece. We got 4% of him. For 45 on DraftKings, he looks a lot better. 31%. Again, a little bit below the field, but totally workable at that $4,500 value mark. That's just a very different price play. 16 games, just playing like 16 minutes a night. He's put up 1.22 per minute for the season. But you saw the total clunker that he had the other day. 24 minutes, he put up just 13 FanDuel points. So disasters are on the board, but he's a solid 1 per minute player last year. Somewhere, the truth is somewhere in between. For his 22 minutes, I've got him a little north of 1, but not quite at the 1.2s. So I think he's a good option on DraftKings, not at all on FanDuel. Mix and match play at best on FanDuel. Same thing's true of Timmy Hardaway. Shooting guard, small forward for 43 on FanDuel, just as a mixer on a very big slate. But on DraftKings for 4,000, we get a lot of Timmy. 31% level with the field, shooting guard and small forward eligible. That is a piece I would not mind moving around a little bit. If you take some shares of Timmy Hardaway and you spread them out to some other similarly priced guys, if you use it to, buy more of that, buy more of, some of these guys, and then you're just getting a discount elsewhere. If you drop to like this Luke Kennard share at 39 and save $100 off that Tim Hardaway play and kind of level those off, I think it's okay because it's just a matter of exchanging value shares between, especially in that example, between a couple of pretty low per minute guys. But between the two, I think Kennard at least has maintained most of his production. He was a .78 guy last year, .82 on the FanDuel scale this year, .86 over on DraftKings. Where Timmy went from 0.81 and 22% usage in his minutes that he got last year, he's only at 14% usage, 0.54 per minute in this role. He put up a 12.9 in 35 minutes the other day. I mean, this is a Tim Hardaway game all the way. If you had shown me that just those two columns, no names, no other information, it said, take a wild guess who that was. I'm not saying Tim Hardaway would have been my first guess, but he would have been one of the first 10 names out of my mouth, and it probably would have been in the top 5. Brandon Miller looking very good on DraftKings, and again, another guy not hitting the FanDuel slate nearly as hard. 7,800 shooting guard, small forward eligible, same eligibility positionally, but 400 less on DraftKings. 30% of them, a little bit below the field. Very good player, 1.10 per minute. You could kick that back up for a few additional shares, but that's a pretty solid chunk. Again, on a 11-game DraftKings slate, that's a solid bit of ownership across that pool of guys. But they're all looking very, very appropriate for it. And really, out of that group, only Harden is sticking on FanDuel across sites. A lot of difference across sites today. Des Bane just looks good on both, though. He's not different across sites. 20% FanDuel, 26% DraftKings, level with the field. Shooting guard, small forward eligible on FanDuel. Point guard, small forward eligible on DraftKings. Kind of prefer the DraftKings eligibility, but 1.14 per minute for the season. He's played 11. He's played like 28 minutes a night. Got him in there for a little bit more than that with shorthanded Memphis. In 24 the other day, he put up a 20.4 and kind of disappointed everybody. But I think he'd just go right back to the well and should have every opportunity to do what he wants against Detroit. Anthony Black, no love on FanDuel at 52, but at 45 on DraftKings. Again, very significant value piece. You're getting him like 1 in 4 and level with the field. There is, again, some maneuverability between these top few guys in the 4s, Black, and some other guys down in this territory in the 4s, the 5s. There's a lot of maneuverability back and forth between shares of those guys. Putting up 0.87 per minute on the season, was right around 1, a little above 1 per minute the other day. When he gets an opportunity, he tends to pay off his pretty low prices. He's an okay per minute performer and should have plenty of run here. So I like the spot on DraftKings. I don't love it, and the field is there. I think there are many comparable options. On FanDuel, we really don't have to worry about it because the price is just wrong. Like seeing 24% of Donovan Mitchell on FanDuel, 22% on DraftKings. That's looking pretty good. He's 8,800 on both sides, both guard spots on both sides. I'm actually a little surprised that we got that much of him. I kind of like that. He pays off as a very solid mid-range option with a lot of ceiling on. And then we got him and De'Aaron Fox paired together a lot, I'm sure, given that result on FanDuel, which is also kind of interesting. Fox at 8,700. We got him 44% of the time. We got 24% of Donovan Mitchell. And we did get Fox on DraftKings as well, 22% of both guys. 9,100 for Fox at point guard only. Not a bad option. I don't love the matchup against Minnesota. He's put up 1.17 so far this year, 1.20 on the DraftKings scale. Was a better player last year by and large, but has trajectory back to this kind of production on any given slate. Last slate was not that game, 24.1 in 39.7 minutes. That's a disaster. That's dramatically underplaying his talent. You're not typically getting that bad a game out of De'Aaron Fox. Beasley continuing to get starters run for Detroit right now, 22%. Level with the field on FanDuel, 20%. Slight undercut to the field on DraftKings, but looking like a piece, 56, 55. Perfectly fine as a value play. He's put up 0.78 on the FanDuel scale, 0.84 on DraftKings so far this year. Just historically more of an underwhelming per minute guy, 0.66 last year on lighter usage. When the shots are there, though, he can rack up cheap points. That's the situation he's in today. So 1 in 5 is fine. I don't know that I would press the advantage any more. Like directionally, I think I would rather undercut by a little bit. I'd probably rather be in this position to the field than like dead level with the field. He's another guy, like Malik Beasley at 55, at 56 over here. He's another guy that is just interchangeable with a number of guys up and down the board in similar range. There's nothing overly special about this situation for him. 492 value score, slightly below the threshold. Same thing here, 503. LaMelo is absolutely a player that you can grab additional shares of. We got him 15% of the time, which is nice on DraftKings. A little pocket full of them over there, but below the field, he's at 1.49 for the season. And again, Charlotte's just missing bodies left, right, and center. So LaMelo is going to be able to continue going out there and doing whatever he wants. He put up a 70-something, and then he followed it up with a 64-3 in 39.7 minutes the other day. We're light on FanDuel at just 3%. That's where I would definitely look to try and maybe claw back a little bit more against the field. Field is aggressively higher than that. How highly owned is he on FanDuel? Let's see what that difference actually looks like. It's a potentially important player. 5-10, we got time. So that's like 7. The field is like 7x that mark, roughly. Oh, they haven't projected dramatically higher than I do. No wonder they've got so much ownership on them. Hang on. How the hell? Wow. Okay. The ownership that this sim ran against, and those of you guys who have been here before know where it's from, they have LaMelo projected a full 5 points higher than I do. And I'm giving LaMelo full credit for like this and that. They've got him in like the upper 1.5s, which isn't crazy. I mean, he was in that level just the last 2 games. But to project him that way, I feel is a little bit much. Maybe a little additional room for him, sure. If anything, I do think you take him upward, like I was saying anyway. But bear in mind that did run against a pretty dramatic... That's why we're getting such a big undercut. Because he's just very popular the way in their numbers. The way they've got him projected. Like, if you put him at that high a projection, it's going to make their ownership algorithm naturally assume he's a better option. That's an interesting spot of contention. That's what I'm kind of curious about, if anybody's got eyes on other places. How deep are we on LaMelo? Am I way under at like 50, 51 across sites? I didn't think so. It's giving him 1.45. Again, if you give him 2 to 5 more fantasy points on either site, he will come up more for you. So that's what happened there. That's what they were doing. 60% of Trey Murphy. Murph looks great today. All he's got to do is play. He's currently questionable. 6,800 on the DraftKings slate. Both forward spots, 14% of them over there. Level with the field, perfectly fine at 5.37 as a value score on DraftKings, but one of our better pieces at 5.64 on the FanDuel slate. He compares with Buddy Hield, who we were getting quite a bit of up at the top, and he's the best guy as far as guys that are on both sites on the FanDuel slate in terms of our value score there for 6,400. Just a good looking piece. Small forward and shooting guard eligible. A lot of flexibility there. 58. Yowza. That's schmabs though. What about anybody who's got like good projections? I guess I'll give him a little bigger of a nudge. I'm not usually that enthusiastic about... Again, he's done it 2 games in a row. The game environment is going to be there for him to potentially do it again. That's also just a 218-point game. They're 3.5-point dogs to Miami at home. Not that any of that necessarily prevents LaMelo from doing whatever he wants, but I really don't like that. I don't like having him that high. I think giving him his 1.4s is more than reasonable. To give him his due, though, that second game was against Orlando. It's a pretty damn good defensive team. I'll probably nudge him a little just to get it to give people more shares. You're on your own nudging it further than what you see me do, which is probably going to be maybe 2 points. But he's definitely very, very good and a permanent monster and well worth getting to. Castle, we really didn't get on FanDuel. He's 5,600 now. A lot of options in that price range. No real need for him. 15% on DraftKings at 52. He's a mix and match piece over there. A lot of the other options. 14% of Murph we talked about. 14% of Malik Monk back in action. 0.93 per minute so far in his 11 games that he's played. Played 25 minutes a night. Came back, played 26 the other day. Put up 24-7. Basically came back to be exactly Malik Monk. I would have similar expectations of him today. I think he's a movable part on DK for the 54 at both guard spots. At 51, we do get a larger chunk of him on the FanDuel slate. 26%, that's an undercut to the field. Looks like he's going to be a reasonably popular piece over there. It's a good value score, but there are definitely ways to go from that price point. So if he gets overly popular, and I think taking the undercut here and maybe even lowering it a little further, 20%, 22%, something like that, and drop a few more shares into some other guys around him here. Pippen at 58, 18% on FanDuel, basically level with the fields, level-ish with the field, slight undercut at 11% on DraftKings. He's been excellent in his per-minute role when he steps into starters minutes. Got him at 28 today. If you gave him a little uptick from that, he would look even better. But definitely viable. 5.34 more viable on FanDuel as far as the value score goes. But 5.11 on DraftKings is nothing to sweat. Solid 31.9% assist rate on the season. It's a decent contributor. But again, another guy who just kind of falls into the mid-range, and there are a million different guys in that price range. Ben Matherin's one of those guys. 8% of them on DK at 67. 9% of them on FanDuel at 65. Nothing special about Ben Matherin, priced like who he is. Onesie twosies on Jaden Ivey. Same thing over here. Hard undercut to the field on Josh Green, which I'm fine with. 0.52 per minute on FanDuel, 0.54 per minute on DraftKings. Did not get him at all on FanDuel for 42. At 38, he does come up on DraftKings. That's another guy who's in that mix of, cheapo guys. If you got a Harrison Barnes and you want a Josh Green instead, perfectly fine. Trey at 92. Comes up a little bit, 4% on DraftKings, but under the field. Same ownership for Jaden Ivey. Similar for Austin Reeves, Scoot Henderson. Trey's questionable. Scoot's questionable. If Trey doesn't go, there's obviously a big downstream impact as far as just a gigantic pile of usage drops into everybody else's laps. There's 36 minutes to be redistributed, so keep an eye on that. Conley in again for, basically looks exactly like he did yesterday as far as the minutes and the projections go, but today with so many options, he barely comes up at all. One share of them in 150 on FanDuel, 3% of them and below the field on DraftKings. He's perfectly fine. He's been playing relatively well in his low 20s minutes, but especially with him questionable and having missed yesterday, I just don't see the need to put a lot of Mike Conley in your life and then have to deal with it if he doesn't go. Davion Mitchell, mix and match. We got a little bit more Mikal Bridges on the FanDuel slate at 9%. Nothing special about the spot, really. And he has been playing fairly poorly overall in terms of expectations in a point per minute sense. Knicks have been fine around him, but 0.76 down from 0.94. Obviously, a cut of about 5 and change points of usage. But functional here, not really a piece on DraftKings. And then a couple big outliers down toward the bottom here. Jared McCain, FanDuel, 6,900, both guard spots. He's 73 now on DraftKings. He did not come up one time in 150. But on FanDuel, we're still at a 5+ value score on a kid who's putting up 1.0 per minute. Got him at 34 minutes with a lot of missing bodies for Philly. Love the upside. 20%, that's level with the field. If you had him 25, I wouldn't quibble with it. And then that's a weird one. $4,100 Keon Ellis hitting a little bit. What's that popularity going against? This board's too big. Where is... There they are. I'm not used to the 8 o'clock games being that far down the line. Yeah, I'm surprised by that. That might come down. There might be something funky in that. Why did that come up so much? We're going to jump to forwards in just a second. I just want to figure out why this landed that hard on this board. Got him right at his 0.72. I wouldn't be that crazy about going to Keon Ellis. The mix and match piece is fine for 4,100, but again, it's just a guy who falls into, there's a lot of shares of that guy. A 0.73, 0.81 last year, low usage guy. I don't love that spot. I just cut like a 1.5 out of his projection, and that'll definitely lower him. We'll still get him a little bit, but I don't think it's going to be as enthusiastic as that. No love on DraftKings at all. 7% on Darius Garland. That's definitely a player I could take more of at 6,800. You can get a little bit more Darius Garland. He's still pretty cheap for his upside. 117 per minute so far on a FanDuel scale this year. Was right about that. Right around a point per minute the other day. But basic security of like 30 minutes. The upside beyond that, a little bit more challenging, but the price is right to grab a few additional shares. Just ones and twos of everybody else. Nothing crazy there. Let's get forwards on the board. All right, forward outliers. 34% of John Collins getting back in our lives again. Yet again, missing bodies in Utah. So we got some Collins. Whoever shouted out Bryce Sensabaugh yesterday, good job. Went out, played another 26 and a half minutes. Unfortunately, only put up 16 FanDuel points. Nothing you can do about that. The call was for the minutes, and he got them. Up at 29 for today, coming in at 3,800 on the FanDuel slate. Small forward only. He's 12% exposed in our top 150. Not on the DraftKings slate, but for your late night slate, he'll probably pop up a little bit on DK as well. If you're not familiar, over at rotoscouts.com, by the way, once the game's locked for the slate as it stands on DK, I'll go in and I'll add the pricing for the late slate for those remaining games. And the projections will all pop up then. They're not there right now just to avoid confusion for people who are playing across sites or taking those and dropping them into Sims or whatever. Don't want people to have to exclude 200 players that aren't on the slate manually. But check those out. Everything at rotoscouts.com. Under $1 a day for access to NBA, NHL, and NFL right now. MLB when it comes back. We've got a lot of NFL games coming up over the next few days. 3 tomorrow, 1 on Friday. Usual main slate on Sunday. It's going to be a lot of fun. No NBA or NHL tomorrow, but big slate's coming back on Friday, and we've got all this action. So dive in. Under $7 to get you from today till next Wednesday. Access to everything. Not bad. 15% of Jalen Williams up there at the top of the board, differentiated on the FanDuel slate. I would not mind having a little bit more of Jalen. 1.38 per minute at 8,900. That's a very good buy. One of the better per minute marks that you're going to get for sub 9,000 on this entire slate. I would not mind having a little bit more and at least being level with the field if I can get to 25 in that spot. It's a matter of who you sacrifice. But honestly, if I'm cutting the heart out of some Draymond shares at 59, where we got 27% of them, and just plunking him into those shares and then figuring out how to pay for it at a different position, I'm kind of okay with that. No Steph. Draymond will have the opportunity to do his thing facilitating a little bit more like he does in that situation. For the season, a 25.1% assist rate. He is a good facilitator. Wiggins is right there next to him. Jonathan Kuminga's 2 spots down. Trace Jackson-Davis is down here. Brandon Podziemski's down here. Mix and match shares, and no shares of those guys. 9% of Wiggins. 4% of Kuminga. Everybody's just looking like who they are in a mix and match way, except Draymond, who does get a little bit of an uptick. But again, if I'm sacrificing some of these and figuring out how to pay for more of this, and Booker's in that conversation as well, I'm happy to do that. Those are your real outliers for the late games. Monster shares of Saloon. We talked about this before, but all the big men for Charlotte are dead. 62% of them on the FanDuel slate, where he costs just $3,700, $3,500 on DraftKings. We got him 67% over there. Looks like a terrific piece. So 0.61 per minute player, but at those prices, doesn't really matter. Did put up just 8.9 FanDuel points in 30 minutes the other day, though. That would be problematic even at 3,700, 3,500. You really want him to be a little bit better than that. But that would be a tragic outcome for him again. He should be a better basketball player than that. Denny, pretty significant piece, 35% on FanDuel, both forward spots for 5,800. Again, just a lot of missing bodies and potentially more missing bodies for Portland as we get toward lock. 5,500 on DraftKings, small forward only, 38% exposed in our top 150. Little undercut to the field on both sites, more aggressive undercut to the field on FanDuel, but a very key mid-range piece that you're going to want to have a big chunk of. So 1 in 3 lineups with Denny looks pretty good to me, and rotating him around the forward spots on FanDuel gives him a little value, but he's probably going to get boxed out more aggressively by some power forwards. Although we are sorted to FanDuel power forward and not that many dominant shares. I want to look at that real quick, actually. Yeah, it's Saloon getting 62. There's another 20. There's another 20-ish. But that goes at, both of those go at center also. Same thing there. Yeah, it's probably just split up between those multi-position eligible. Looked a little light. Hardaway we talked about. Brendan Miller we talked about. Des Bane. So Evan Mobley, who just popped up a second ago when I was sorting that, probably getting a lot of that at power forward, given how this board falls with all these shares going to small forward eligible guys. So I think a lot of that goes to power forward, and then we'll see who pops up more at center. 7,800, 1.22 per minute is a pretty decent buy. 1.20 on DraftKings. We got him 22% of the time over there. Level with the field. 5 and change value score is pretty good, especially at a short position as far as value goes. We get the 6+ there, 5-6 there, and those are the only 2 guys technically above our 5-5 value threshold. But we have a large cluster of affordable players that are right next to it. And having, guys on that list being Desmond Bane, Evelyn Mobley, Trey Murphy, Jared Allen, Jabari Smith. There's some decent upside plays in that group. Decent per minute guys in that group. So this is not a bad range to work in right here, where you're getting level with the field with significant shares on each of these guys across a lot of positions and a lot of prices. And if you look by the per minute rates, like the only bad outlier for per minute mark in there right now is Timmy Hardaway, who, as I said before, I'd be more than happy to sacrifice shares of. So that's an interesting range to play in. Beasley we talked about. Again, 22% on FanDuel, 20%. He's going to be part of our lives as long as he's getting 30-ish minutes, 30-plus minutes, I should say. At his 29.4 average, mediocre. When we get him up to 32, 33, becomes a little bit better. Jared Allen, 4% on FanDuel, 7,900. I think we probably just soaked up more of those shares for 100 less with Evan Mobley in the exact same situation, putting up the exact same 1.22 per minute. So why buy it for this price in the same situation when you can buy it for that price is basically how this landed. 4% here, if you wanted to even that out, that would not be a mistake. At 7,400 on DraftKings, we got him 14% of the time. That is 100 less than the Mobley price on DK. We still didn't get him at the same level. 5.36 value score there, a 5.23, a little bit under projected in a point per dollar sense. But again, swappable parts at worst in Cleveland. Get him together in a lineup is perfectly fine if you land that way, but it's probably not going to land that way given how they're both priced. Jabari is a very different play across sites. He is 5,600 on the FanDuel slate. Power forward only, we did not get him. Power forward and center for only 47. We got him 14% of the time. It's pretty decent little value play. He's been putting up 0.84 per minute on DK. That's not a bad buy at that price. You get a lot of guys that fall into this price range even when they have minutes that are still, they're giving you this 0.54 or 0.58, 0.64, et cetera, et cetera. So if you can get to a mid 0.8s guy, even particularly into 0.9s and 1+, better. those are the better value options to squeeze. So not a bad spot there. Not a worthwhile spot at all on FanDuel. Franz, the big man, we got him 28% of the time on FanDuel, undercutting the field on a big player. Big opportunity to continue his ridiculous success that he's put up this year. 49.7 in 40.2 FanDuel, 40.2 minutes, 49.7 FanDuel points. 1.33 per minute for the season, 1.34 on DraftKings. A more substantial undercut to the field on DK for the 9,700 over there. But we did still get him 12% over there. If you want more Franz, take more Franz. This is not a challenge. This is not a spot where it's like, we have to avoid Franz. He is a major upside play. And he comes cheaper than, say, an Anthony Davis. Different positioning on DraftKings, but if you're considering like the util spot. Similar exposure to Davis, but we got AD more level with the field. If it's me, I'm taking a bigger position on the Anthony Davis advantage and leaving the Franz undercut. But that's just because I'm following the numbers, right? This is telling me that AD is owned in the 8 to 12% range, and there's an easy advantage to be grabbed on one of the top overall per minute players, one of the top overall players, period. So that to me becomes more appealing, I think, than this, where the field's going to be there fairly aggressively. So if I grab more of Franz, all it really does is get me back to the field. Where if I grab more of AD, yes, there are different prices and different positions. If I grab more of AD, I'm taking an advantage against the field. Right? So it's just a different proposition what you're doing in those two scenarios. And you always want to be, in my opinion, taking positions rather than just flat, at least on the expensive guys, rather than just flat bringing them back to the field. If there are good like head-to-head options in that category. If it's just one guy kind of floating there a lot of the time, I will say, yeah, if you want a little bit more of them, bring them back to the field, that's fine. But I think with so many options on the board, it's best to continue trying to build little forts on hills. Tobias Harris, 18% on FanDuel, and honestly don't even really want that much of them. Undercut to the field, 10.6 on DraftKings, undercut to the field, 6,300 over there, same price on FanDuel. He does have more positional flex with both forward spots on FanDuel, but you can replicate that basically with multi-spots on DraftKings as well. It's 0.90 per minute this season on both sites. He was a 0.98 player last year on about 2 percentage points more usage when he was with Philly. I just don't like him here. He's been coming up throughout the season for us because he's fairly priced in the mid-range. But I can replicate exactly what he's giving you with so many different options on this slate that I really don't need to get excited about Tobias Harris here. Way more likely to give you that or thereabouts. Pascal Siakam, 17% of the time. That's fine. 10% on FanDuel, or on DraftKings, rather. Under the field here, level with the field there. Just an is who he is spot. But with all the big men dead for Portland, maybe a little bit more than that for Siakam. Ben Mathurin more in an is who he is spot. 9%, 8% across sites. He's fine. But again, another guy you can just kind of replicate at those prices with a lot of different options. Minutes are fairly secure, though. I mean, you're talking about 31.8 average for the season. We got him up at 34 today, and that's he played 37 and change the other day. So on a slate that's this big, where you do kind of want to be paying attention to just bulky minutes and likelihood of playing upper 30s minutes, there is a reasonable argument to be made that he's an appealing piece from that mid-range. 0.95 per minute on FanDuel, 0.99 per minute on DraftKings. So more likely to pay you off in the just median projection sense, which everybody is, of course. But yeah, he's workable. Again, Isaac on DraftKings is kind of interesting. 4,300 power forward and center eligible, 5.10 value score. Got into 8%. That's a little undercut to the field. If you wanted to goose that one up, as a value play, he's a very good per minute value player. 1.03 per minute on DraftKings this year. He's a little bit better of a value player on FanDuel, where he's a 1.11 player this year, 1.16 last year. But he's got a fair amount of upside when he's playing mid-20s minutes. I've got him at 21 today. Played 22.5 the other day, put up a 27.2. That's exactly the kind of value you can get out of Jonathan Isaac on the right day. So if you gave him the 2.5 additional minutes, he would just look a little bit better here. we'd probably have gotten him 12%, maybe a little above, maybe dead even with the field. Brendan Ingram, watch for status. If he plays, he looks fine. He looks like Brendan Ingram at 85, 84 across sites. Shooting guard, small forward makes him a little more valuable on DK. Less so on FanDuel, but sub 10% and aggressively so on both. And I think that's appropriate. Now, don't do this to me in the middle of a show, MLB app. You can't pop up a thing that says Juan Soto when I'm otherwise occupied. There's just yet another nonsense rumor about Soto. I'd like to think that the Dodgers signing Blake Snell for a big pile of money means that they're out of the Soto pursuit, but they just print money, so they're probably not. That was my one thought on the ridiculous, ludicrous Blake Snell acquisition. That pitching staff is going to be devastatingly good next year. So, yeah, Ingram, just mix and match, is who he is kind of a day if he goes at all. Shaden Sharp, no real love, 7% on DraftKings for 61. Another guy you can replicate in a number of different ways. Jimmy, 1% FanDuel, 5% DraftKings, meh. Josh Green, Derek Jones, they come up a little bit more as $38 and $3,900 options than they do as $4,200 and $4,800 options, kind of self-explanatory. Both low per minute guys, though. 0.77 out of Jones. I already talked about Josh Green and his ridiculously low per minute. Jones is also power forward only on DraftKings, which really doesn't help his case as far as being a cheap, flexible spot. I don't love that. It is a soft game environment for them, but I mean, in his 24-6 the other day, he put up a 13-9. Very capable of underwhelming. The 0.77 this year is actually on increased usage and a slight uptick from where he was last year. So it's one of those players where it's like the 0.77 is not a true ceiling, but that's going to be like a slightly above average game, and he's just had several slightly above average games to start the season. And I think as time goes on and as the usage comes back down and pieces come back for them, he probably goes back in this direction. So there's more downside for a player like Derek Jones more often than not. RJ for 10% on FanDuel at 81. Happy to have him, 1.17. A little bit reduced with Scotty coming back, but it's still no IQ there. A bunch of other pieces still out, Grady Dick and so on and so forth. So still plenty for all of the starters and all the primary players to do. And he's been quite good this year. The usage will come down from the 29% that he was seeing. 25.7 was last year's mark. And that will have a hit, but good enough. And honestly, not crazy high priced. Not a big piece on DraftKings, but playable. Same thing with Jalen Johnson. Not a big piece on DraftKings, not a big piece on FanDuel, but a very good per minute player. Just not the best opportunity for him going up against Cleveland and the Cleveland front court, but he's very capable of 37 minutes, 54.7 FanDuel points. So you definitely want to consider some. He is also priced up pretty high on FanDuel at 92. He's a much, much better buy at 8,400 on DraftKings. Wemby, you can grab more shares of Wemby. Firmly on that list. 4% level with the field on FanDuel for 11.4. He's only 10.8 on DraftKings, but he loses a little bit of luster because of the difference in how stocks are scored. 3.3% and a little bit below the field for 10.8 on DraftKings. More shares of him on either one of those sites is perfectly acceptable, even against LA and AD and so on and so forth. 55.4 in 36.5 minutes the other day. One of the top per minute players on the entire slate. One of the top per minute players in his rookie season last year, as we looked at the other day. Triple J, mix and match piece on both sites. Fairly priced. Very good per minute player. 1.34, 1.32 across sites so far this year. I think just getting boxed out by a lot of similarly priced or value shares that are going through those positions because it's a 11 and 14 game slate. The same can be said for a lot of other good players like, let's say Domantas Sabonis, who got 3% here, 2% there. Not good players here, but playable mix of guys like Mikal Bridges, Naz Reid, Josh Hart didn't really get any love, 1% across sites. Alexander Sarr, nothing on FanDuel, 1% on DraftKings, but at 56, you can see a little bit of upside for that depleted Washington team. Bogdan maybe gets more interesting if Trey doesn't go. I'm going to keep coming back to Bogdan until it works out. 27-8 the other day. The minutes have gone up and up and up and up as he's rounding into shape and form and everything. Just gave us 24.1 for it, though. The 0.95, the per minute guy, is coming back at some point. I want to be ahead of the curve. If Trey's not in, that creates a good opportunity for this to be that night on Bogdan. Right now, nothing to get excited about. Maybe he picks up a little bit of ground there. I don't think I would launch him into the 35 minutes or anything crazy like that, but I would give him an uptick in rate for sure in that situation, and he'd probably go from 27 maybe to 29, 28 and a half, 29. Cody, nothing. 1% over here. These are just 1%ers on DraftKings. But LeBron James is one of those guys. Scotty Barnes is one of those guys. Kyle Kuzma is one of those guys. Anthony Edwards, Julius Randle, and Zach LaVine are all on that list where we're just getting no shares, one share here and there. Same thing on FanDuel. Onesie, twosies, if that, for all those guys. Most particularly out of those guys that I just mentioned, in order, it's probably LeBron, then Anthony Edwards, and then maybe Scotty. As far as guys that it's maybe if you want to take a few additional shares, build a position on any one of those guys, the superstars you can do that with. And then there's Harrison Barnes to bring us full circle at the forward spot. I don't see any outliers on FanDuel down the board here. So we're good to go. Let's talk about some centers. How you guys doing out there? 5:41, 19 minutes to go through all these centers. Maybe we'll be able to punch out even a couple minutes early. Trey is in. Thank you, Steven Leibowitz. Jeremy Grant is out. DeAndre Ayton is in. Scoot Henderson is in. Jalen Smith is out. Lonzo Ball is in. Appreciate it, guys. Could be Travis says, hey, Tara, I've been having problems uploading the CSV to my optimizer of choice. That's probably because the CSV has both DraftKings and FanDuel, and it's not formatted for your optimizer, Trav. So all you got to do is, whatever, I'm sure they have a template file. And if you just map the template to the output or just, copy paste, or just grab my file, CSV pops up and just delete and then just have the player name in the points column or whatever it is you need. Most of them just need a player name and a points column, and there should be no issues uploading from that. One thing you might run into is a player name convention when there's DraftKings guys. But most optimizers at least pop those up and tell you, did you mean this guy? Did you mean that guy? So maybe around some juniors, because I use FanDuel names, and if you're using DK names, it might create a little bit of a difference there. But it should be just a straightforward CSV upload. So I would say first step is just cut down so that you're just uploading player name and points, or just whatever's required of your optimizer. Ping me in Discord, though, Trav, if you need help. And that goes for everybody. If you're running into anything, ping me in Discord. You can email my email, which is tmcb, the same thing at Gmail. But Discord is easy. Discord's right there, and it'll pop up in front of me. There's a customer support channel in there, or you can feel free to DM me. Reach out on Twitter is another way to get in touch. The @RotoScouts Twitter handle. But most direct path to getting support probably is in the Discord. If you're not in our Discord, let me drop a link. And make sure you're checking out rotoscouts.com. Again, everything. $1 a day or less for access to all the sports we cover, all the projections, content for NFL. Going to be beefing up the content for NBA as the season goes along. Check out acemind.io too. That's our sim partners. It's where we run the sims that feed these percentages into the dashboard here. I did mention the other day, somebody had asked me after subscribing, no, you don't get access to this dashboard, and it would be entirely useless for you because you got to repopulate this every day. Right? You would have to literally paste my projections, run AceMind Sims, put all this data together, and so on and so forth, and then it would only be showing you the data that you're already getting out of running Sims. So this is just graphical for the show. This just gives me talking points and the ability to, I almost used the word sanely, the ability to make it through the slate. Outlier centers on FanDuel. Jokic, 11%. Happy to have that. Take more if I can get it. 34% of Collins, probably a lot falling at the power forward. 3% of Isaiah Hartenstein. Very good per minute player. He got up to 31.5 minutes the other day, so no real concerns about the time. Put up 36 FanDuel points. Has been at 1.32 in the small sample in 2 games this season. 1.07, though, last year. Excellent offensive rebounder. One of the top collectors of fantasy points, really, for his role and price that you can find on most boards. That said, not really coming up as at all relevant today. Walker Kessler, not nearly as relevant as he was yesterday. Does have FanDuel points upside in a per minute sense from accruing points through stocks, but not really hitting the board all that hard for 6,400 center only. Draymond, again, we talked about it in the forwards breakdown, but a significant share of Draymond, significant share of Drew Eubanks as a $4,100 center. That's another interesting one created by all the missing bodies in Utah. 25%. That's a little uncomfortable. He's been solidly putting up 0.91 per minute this year, though, in 14 games, about 15 minutes a night, 0.91 last year. Can't really argue with it. Just gave him basically who he is. It's like exactly where I've got him, right? Let's, 29 minutes and a 26.9 point projection. It's probably exactly 0.91. It's actually 0.88. Could have taken him a little higher. So that's a piece that's going to be a little bit differentiated across the late games of FanDuel. It's another one maybe to look out for. Bear in mind for the DK 3-gamer, if you're playing the late slate on DK, that value will pop up over there. And again, I'll put those prices and projections up after your last game locked for the main slate on DK. Trendon Watford, not really looking like a piece. Nets missing multiple bigs with Claxton out, with Clowney out, and so on and so forth. Did we see? Huh. I was expecting to see a little of one of these two guys, but I guess their prices are just kind of matched up for that now. Both of those guys have been coming up for value when they've been kicking up into minutes in this territory. But for 41, looks like Watford was the guy despite the lower minutes. It's a pretty solid value score. Single center, though, FanDuel, I don't know that I even want to sink the 7% shares into Trendon Watford today. It's fine, but again, that is a fairly hard undercut to the field. So I think he plays a little bit more just mix and matchy, given the one bite at the apple at center that we have on FanDuel. If that was a DraftKings option, it would be different. Ben Simmons, again, I expect most of those are at point, not center. That could be wrong. And those are the only outliers, really. All right, Moussa Diabate, 5,500 on FanDuel. Not really coming up at all. 3%. Level with the field, not the same play. DraftKings, 5,000. Power forward and center eligible. 46%, one of the most highly owned players against the field's exposure. I think that's like 15, 16 points ahead of the field. He was one of the more highly projected players in the field's ownership when I ran this. Plenty of opportunity for him. He's been playing at 0.92 in his 17 games, 19 minutes a night. We're basically kicking the minutes up by more than 10. There is a solid expectation that he can continue to perform at that level. 32.3 minutes the other day. He put up a solid 26.6 on the FanDuel scale. If you get that game for 5,000, it's not a total disaster, but you obviously want more. 19.5% rebounding rate is pretty significant. 54% true shooting for a big man is not at all good. On FanDuel, I think it's really just that price being slightly higher and that center only, that one bite at the apple at center that's really killing him there. Miles Turner drawing a little bit bigger of a share on the FanDuel slate at 66, 12%. He's one of the few center-only options. Mobley, I really do think that a lot of these just center power forward shares are slipping over into the center spot. Because there's not really, again, among the center-only guys, they did this with power forward, did it the other way before. That's not what I wanted. Well, we do get 12 there, 12 there. Maybe we're making our way back to some of this. Let's see. Yeah, so, wow. It's just spread out. All those power forward guys are actually landing more at power forward. That's 85.9% of the center ownership goes to these sorted center-only guys. Sorted, not sorted. So that's kind of interesting. We had the ones we talked through that were the outliers up here, and then we're getting 12% Ayton, which is going to be an interesting piece. He's only 6,000, and he's confirmed in now. He was showing a 5.76 value score. If anything, that could go up. DeAndre Ayton, especially if the field's not on him, we got him 12%. That's level-ish with the field. If you kick that up to 20, 25, sacrifice some of the shares from up here, sacrifice some of these, that's an interesting spot. I would rather have, I think, yeah, I would, because he's 600 less, better value score, and we already got more of them, and level with the field on both guys. Give me DeAndre Ayton over Miles Turner for 600 less on FanDuel. I think that's an interesting spot. I would still take some Turner, but if I could go take 6 points off of this, have it. Give me 6% of Turner further below the field. Give me 18, 20% of DeAndre Ayton and get further above the field and build the position. Like I was saying before, build positions. I think that's interesting. That's a good spot. Just bear in mind, he's back, but all the other bigs are dead for Portland. It's him and, Ruop? Getting back into the DraftKings side, I know everybody would rather talk DraftKings, but I get excited when I spot these little wrinkles on FanDuel. Let's see. Turner on DK, 65. You got him 34% of the time over there. He's going to be interesting. 1.03 per minute. Just has a lot of Miles Turner games. A lot of average games. The Miles Turner broke off a 3 standard deviation game is really difficult to come by. The 2 standard deviation. It seems like we're playing a lot closer to the average with Miles Turner. And again, I continue to recognize that those are foolish statements to make. 18% of Zubac at 7,000, center only. We got a pretty hard undercut to the field there. Price-wise, he's just more expensive than some of the options that immediately surround him for points and value. I would have no issues getting a little bit more of him, though, going up against Washington. Potential spot for him to dominate and do Zubac things. 1.12 per minute so far this season on DK. Same thing on FanDuel. That's up a little bit. He's seen increased usage, again, with LA trying to cover for the missing Kawhi Leonard that they've got to deal with in an ongoing sense. Everybody's seeing a little bit more opportunity here. So Zubac is fine to potentially a little bit more interesting than we're seeing him. But considering this is 18 already on a giant slate and it's an undercut to the field, I think I'd probably stay in that kind of territory. Clint Capella at 12% because he's only 5,400 on DraftKings. The minutes are the key. 22.4 the other day. He averages 22.7. He's priced down now a little bit less to a lower point than he was earlier in the year. I've got him at 24, basically been just going with an even split. But he seems to come up more on the short side of that split these days. I don't love the Capella play. I'm happy to be below the field. You can have a little bit, 1.15 per minute. AD looking like, again, a big piece, 17% FanDuel, 10% DraftKings. We talked through him when we went through forwards, but again, he is a monster piece, and you can grab more as a center only on DraftKings. Şengün, 4% here, 6% there, and with his per minute marks this season, and honestly, staying at just 85, 86 across sites, there's not that much daylight. That's AD is a better performer, but is that 0.12 per minute worth that price gap, a $1,900 price gap? I don't know. I think Şengün could be a little bit more viable than we're seeing him. But again, it's such a big slate that it's difficult to say you want to go grab more because it's a sacrifice of something else. But since we are level with the field, and we are level with the field on a good player and a good per minute player with absolute security of his minutes, you could take more here just on the fact that the field is going to be in single digits. So if you got him double this, 12%, you're building a bigger advantage against the field. Same thing here, 8%. You're a bigger advantage, 10%. You're a bigger advantage against the field. So on good plays like that, it's okay. I would probably, though, FanDuel wise, it's a not comparable price swap. But FanDuel 80 is quite clearly the more appealing. It's closer on DraftKings. Mobamba, no thank you. He's only 3,200 on DraftKings, though, so 16 minutes of 1.18 could potentially get you there. You are very much more likely to land in the 15 to 18 DraftKings points range and not really be too happy about it than you are in like the 25 to 28 DraftKings points and be doing a little dance because he's got the fire symbol next to him. Don't really think it's going to be Mo Bamba Day. He gets these shares because he's super cheap. Cat is a player you can definitely advance your shares of. 1.5 per minute so far this year. Same thing at 1.58 for Wemby, who we talked about already. Ayton in the middle there. On DraftKings, we really didn't get much Ayton. There's a $600 price gap site to site. So that play I got excited about before was almost exclusively a FanDuel option. 4% below the field. If you want to kick that up to 10, you're probably just leveling it with the field, so it's probably not worth your time. Over here, I think I would grab more. And then, again, we're just hitting a list of good players who we don't really get because of the math, because of the size of the slate and the number crunch at positions. So, onesie, twosie shares on both sites of everybody from among Wemby, Jakob Poeltl, Jaren Jackson, Domantas Sabonis, Alexander Sarr, Okongwu, Bam, Vooch, Rudy Gobert, to a lesser extent, Santi Aldama, Danny Gafford, Jonas Valanciunas, Mo Wagner, Derek Lively, Yves Missi. All of these guys are mix and match to zeros, despite some of them coming up at relatively good per dollar projections. Number of 5+ guys in that list as far as the value scale goes on DraftKings, all the way up to a 5.24 at 4,500. Okongwu, 5.24 value score. We just didn't get him. That's how irrelevant that value score is today. Basically no shares of any of these guys on FanDuel. We got a little bit of Nas, a little bit of Sabonis, who does come up a fair amount for us, but now at 94, a little bit less. We need to get him back to this level to have him start coming back up again. But yeah, just ones and twos of all those guys. That is about it, gang. That was the center breakdown. That was the whole slate. We're not going to take the time to go through Ace Mine lineups. That 15 minutes is much better spent today keeping on top of news and updates, of which there are already several. So I got to go take care of those right now. Schedule is going to be in flux a little bit for the next few days. Actually, not really, because I'm back tomorrow night. So Friday, we're back in business. Shows for Basketball Friday. Football show for the main slate will land at some point. I'm going to make sure it happens this week. We missed it last week and was pissed off at myself about that because it's just ran out of time. So we'll get that done. In the meantime, tomorrow it's content only at Roto Scouts on the website. No show tomorrow for Thanksgiving, but the 3-game football slate was absolutely going to be projected. Projections will be up tonight. An optimizer groups and game notes article will be up tonight for those 3 games. A above below article will be up for those 3 games, as will rankings for those 3 games tomorrow. And then we're back in action, NBA, NHL, and so on and so forth going forward, starting on Friday. In between, all you guys enjoy your Thanksgivings. Have a great time, whatever you're doing. I said it yesterday. If you're going and spending time with family, if you're spending time with friends, if you're sitting alone in a dark room, lighting a little candle and eating one of those giant turkey legs from Great Adventure, enjoy that. Whatever you're doing, enjoy the hell out of it tomorrow. Enjoy the day off from sweating DFS outside of, well, I guess we'll all be sweating football. But, yeah, have great Thanksgivings is the point, gang. And tonight, on this ludicrous, absurd, monster, disgusting slate, good luck out there. Somebody go win something. And we will see you, I was waiting for 6 o'clock exactly, on Friday. Later, guys.